There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a really cool show today because, I got to tell you, when you're in the line of work that I do, that everybody's saying you need to go network, you need to go to this place, you need to go to that place, and you need to talk to these people. And I've always found that I didn't get a great deal of satisfaction from that because everybody's trying to sell you something. Everybody's looking at, what can you do for me? No, wait a minute. That's right. Anyway, but it's not a matter of connecting on a serious level. Well, the gentleman that we have today, his name is David Homan, and he is working to develop programs and teams that can connect on a completely different level. And the name of his program is called Orchestrated Connecting, and you can go to orchestratedconnecting.com to learn all about him and what he does. He's got a couple of cool videos there. I did not realize he played the piano too. But he's a great guest for us to have, and he talks about connecting. Well, let's talk to David himself and say, David, how are you? It's nice to see you today.
You as well, Kevin, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, and you're certainly more than welcome, because I think making connections in this world is harder than it's ever been in at least in my lifetime, which goes back a few years, because of, we all look at our phones, and we don't have a real expectation of connection, of taking care of each other, of really working to create something that is good for everybody. Am I wrong in that? What's your experience been like?
So here's the thing that's the most interesting. Everyone I talk to at every event I go to, the ones I hold, the conferences I attend, coffee shop, everyone is in need of more connection. It's not a have to or a must. It's an essential nature of humankind to feel heard, to have people take action on our behalf. But the hardest thing is that we are continually getting in our own way. And we have adopted this mindset, society as a whole, as if our apathy isn't a choice. And the reality is that by choosing not to make a choice, we're making a choice. In voting or not, in deciding to volunteer or not, in deciding to call somebody or not, to show up for something. And, I was just at a conference the other day where this friend showed me this incredible new way to even think about this, right? And it's this idea of positive action, as opposed to saying, I need to go to this networking event. If you say, I get to go, you go with a whole different mindset. I get the opportunity to talk with people. I get the opportunity to share who I am. But what people don't understand, and this is the problem, is it takes a lot of self-work to be at a place where you can both give and receive, as opposed to think, I deserve this. Why isn't this happening for me? Why did it happen for somebody else? And the minute you're in that negative spiral, there's nothing you can do to get yourself out of it until you realize you created that spiral yourself.
And creating that spiral is something that some of us spend a lot of time doing, because we get involved into ourselves and our things, and this is what I need, and but the human connection, and you're absolutely right, the human connection is vital for all of us to work together and to understand each other to a much better degree than we do now, because a lot of it is, what can you do for me, not what I can do for you? How can we work together for the betterment of both? It's, well, here's my 30-second. Have you heard this? This is my 30-second elevator pitch. because I'm going to give everybody my 30-second elevator pitch.
Mhm. And I think that person might be great at their pitch, but did they ask me if I wanted to hear it? You know,
No, they tend to throw up all over you.
they do, right? And so, two of those core tenets, right? I know this from when we first connected, and these are two of the principles in my book, which similarly tied to my network is called Orchestrating Connection. And it's this radical idea, and radical, not really radical, that being curious and vulnerable are strengths.
That is so true. I hadn't looked at it quite that way, but that is so true, because if you're vulnerable, doesn't that create the space for somebody else to ask how you're doing and to talk about what you are interested in or what's going on with you rather than you throwing up on somebody?
It gives you two things at once. It lets you create the space and for that person to show and tell back whether there's somebody worth talking to, or they might suck. If I go to an event, as I did yesterday, and somebody asks how I am, and I go, I'm doing great, that's no opportunity to ascertain who they are. Yesterday, I did that. I spoke to this one person. I told them about my father undergoing a surgery, and his response was, okay. I left that conversation. The other guy not only talked to me, but checked in with me twice during this conference to go, is your dad out of surgery? How is he doing? I got his number. We're going to set up a call. It had nothing to do with why we were both there, but he was one of the few people I told what was happening. And by the end of the day, I felt so grateful that somebody was watching out for me while I was living with this alone, putting on my face to get through the day. I'm going to be so much more helpful to him. And the other guy filtered himself out by his lack of a response. So
I,
if you start with vulnerability and then you're curious about somebody else, you learn so quickly, are they in a self centered mindset, a selfish mindset, or are they somebody actually worth your time because they're asking you and making you feel like you're worth theirs?
And by the way, just so everybody knows, David's dad is out of surgery for today and is doing okay. And I implore everybody to have him in your thoughts. And I hate to use the term thoughts and prayers. But it's important for us to have that human connection, and that human to human is different than business person to business person or salesperson to sales guy. It's a real honest to goodness, how are you doing really? And then if rather than say, oh, I'm great, I'm living the dream, I'm doing that, I mean, those are the thing. It's like whenever I hear that, it's like, thanks, have a good day, talk to you later. Because
Yeah.
I don't, that's not a human connection. That is a connection that is based upon need, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to sell, and that. I don't want that. I want to work with people who I genuinely care for, that I appreciate who they are as a human being, so that we can work together for the betterment of everybody. Does that make sense?
I mean, it obviously makes sense to me because I wrote an entire book on purposeful community. It's the reason that we're here. But in terms of everyone listening, like I'll just expound on that. Like, yes, it makes sense. But what people have to understand to get out of their own heads and out of their own way is that this can be both strategic and enriching at the exact same time. Do you try to sell somebody something and you don't build a relationship? They might take one call, they won't take the second, absolutely not the third. You build a relationship or you help somebody, or you help their kid, or you help their mother, or you realize you volunteer at the same place and you have a relationship, then everything that's transactional can happen while it stays relational at top. And we always underestimate the power of what this is when we're in a place of abundance. But when we're not, we somehow wonder where everything is that was there to support us. And that's when we become much lesser as a society, when our desires and our wants seem so much bigger than other people's. And therefore, we keep thinking, well, I deserve this. I have to have this, as opposed to realizing we're all much more blessed than most other people on this planet, probably everyone listening to your show compared to the rest of the world. And we have to understand that there's always somebody who has it better and somebody who has it worse, but no one who has it all together unless they have a community around them that's become intentional and purposeful.
Having a good community that cares for you and works for you. And that can be your employees if you're an employer. It can be if you're a volunteer. It could be people that you surround yourself with who genuinely care for the same things that you do. And you form a community, whether you want to or not, don't you?
You do. And what I argue is that the way you hold yourself accountable to this world is the way that you should hold the people closest to you accountable to you and each other. That the people closest to you are a choice, and the people closest to them are a choice. And anyone who pretends as if the people around them aren't influencing them for positive or negative doesn't understand what community really is. Because a community isn't a place where you go and you gather. An event isn't a place where people mingle. These are ways for people to build connections or lose them every single time. And most people do not approach this with enough intentionality, which means that you could say you have a community, but will the community actually show up for you when you need it? You can say you're well networked, but will someone return your call when they don't need something from you? These are the fallacies of what we view as community or networks right now, which everything that I write about and everything that I run within my global network is about changing the rules on the system of it so that there's more of an accountability than what we have currently.
And you have got a large group and a community of people because of the seminars that you do and the work that you put on and the books that you've written, that they have a genuine and they because of who you are and how you act, they have a genuine understanding that you are an actual, real, honest to goodness, down to earth human being that is genuinely interested in another human being. With that, am I correct in that?
Actually, no, I'm a complete fraud and you've gotten me wrong. And I've manipulated you into having me on the show so I could talk about all the horrible ways we should treat each other. No, absolutely. Uh, here's the thing people don't realize. We operate with a set of principles we assume will happen a certain way, and then we have such a personal affront when they don't happen the way we assume. So I'll give you one of my favorite examples, which I would say most people can relate to. So when you're invited to a friend's place to see, say, Monday Night Football, there's an understanding. You're going to watch the game. You're not going to take a call during the game. You're not going to stop in the second quarter and ask everyone to play Scrabble. If food's ordered, you chip in. If everyone's supposed to bring food, then bring food. You can't show up and just mooch off people, take a call during the game, and expect to be invited back. And if your team's losing, you can't be razzed on so much. You want to run out of the thing. There's a limit to which when somebody's team is losing, that etiquette means, all right, give it enough. They're down 21 points. Let's not say they're the worst team ever again. Right. And like anyone who's been in that situation, I grew up with college football in my life and my community, being a Florida Gator.
Yep.
When I explain that, everyone goes, yeah, that's how it works. There's usually wings, but sometimes now there's vegan people watching it, so they're vegan wings, but it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Now we have to cater more to gluten free. So you can have a Monday football night that's nachos instead of wings. It doesn't matter because there's an assumption that everyone knows what happens going into a Monday night football event, except for the person who doesn't know, shows up, and is suddenly ridiculed for not knowing something that should have been easily laid out. And so I take that as an example, Kevin. When I show up at an event where I'm introduced to no one, where there's only alcoholic drinks there and I don't drink, not only do I feel out of place, even though I'm a connector who works at a global scale, now I'm thirsty, but no one thought to bring me water. And in every case, we assume things around community, around connection. We don't make them transparent. And then we blame other people for misinterpreting it. The same way everyone who has had a challenged or failed marriage goes, well, the other person thought I could read their mind. No one can do that yet.
Not,
And so
not
we
yet.
we live in these things where we're constantly figuring out what happened that somebody else did wrong instead of what we did. When what really needs to happen is we have to create a better framework to start so everyone can be more accountable to each other. And this is what I call orchestrating your life, orchestrating your community, because that's putting all the guardrails around where things happen so that there's no false assumptions because you put everything out before somebody came into your world, into your event, or even into your business.
And I have another example for you that I'd love to share with you. And that is,
Yeah,
have you
yeah.
ever been to a dinner party and everybody knows the host and the hostesses, or the host and hostess, but they don't know each other?
Hmm.
So there are like 6 or 8 people sitting around, and of course the host is out burning the steaks, and the hostess is in the kitchen making sure the salad's right and stuff. So now you have 6 strangers that are at a table who don't know each other, and then and so everybody's just kind of looking at each other until somebody breaks the ice and said, "So how are you?" and starts a conversation, and there's an art form to doing that, to solicit, to rather than just say, "How are you? I'm great. I'm a radio host, and this is what I do," and they solicit from you, "What do you do? How are you? How was your day? What?" And you begin this conversation, and after a little while, then everybody gets involved, and everybody has a story to tell, and the host and the host and hostess come back, and they have a group of friends that are all suddenly invested in each other and what they're doing. That's kind of what you do, isn't it?
So, yes, but I hack it because I think setting people up for that situation is offensive that way. It's also why I hate dinner parties. If you force people to show up and to be social, it's like telling a bunch of middle schoolers to all be friends and all dance together when everyone wants to stand on two sides of the room and not dance.
True.
Right? And there's like three that go into the room, and one of those three is that person who started that conversation 15 years later at that dinner party you went to. We do not live in a world where extroverts have to start the conversations or they're the only type of connectors. What we need is a world where what we do is we set up the circumstances by which people can thrive, no matter how bad a day they're having, what's happening in their lives, or if they're just not the type of personality to be the first one to break the ice. And I'm not talking about generic icebreakers. For my events, I have a whole different format because I hate all other events. I don't like to walk in and feel like it's middle school all over again, where I couldn't dance then and I can't dance now. In my events, you show up, I tell you you're going to be in group B, Kevin. I give you questions, and those questions are driving and deep. And you suddenly connect with strangers because you have an expectation when you show up, you're going to be in this group. You're told what to think about. You're not told who, which means you have to be curious. The questions bring about vulnerability. And in 25 minutes, I can build trust amongst strangers who have never met. And they don't realize why I put them together till later because they built the trust first. They didn't look at the opportunity first. And so it's not hard. But what people fail to understand is unless you make it intentional, it doesn't matter how good the mimosas that the hostess is making or how perfectly grilled the ribeye is that the host is grilling, because that's not the point of why people came. They came to meet each other. So focus on that however you convene, because we come to meet each other. The rest doesn't matter. We think that rose petals on the floor or a signature drink matter. What matters is I stood in line at the bathroom at this event and told the guy next to me about my dad, and I made a true friend in the span of minutes before and after washing our hands. And that friendship is going to last way longer than the other 20 people I met who didn't give a rat's ass about me. And I gave them ample opportunity to be vulnerable back, and they filtered themselves out.
And that is worth talking about when we come back from this break. We're talking with David Homan, and go to his website, which is orchestratedconnecting.com, and find out all about him. This is just a 43-second break, so stay right with us. We will be right back right after this. Love. War and freedom collide in The Girl of Many Crowns. Judith of Francia's story will take you from the heart of royal courts to the chaos of Viking invasions. It's a tale of resilience and courage that proves history is not just written by kings, but by women who dared to choose their own path. The Girl of Many Crowns is available now on Amazon Books, Kindle, Amazon Audiobooks, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Book Baby Bookshop. Don't just read history, experience it. Order your copy today. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, and David Homan is there, and he is, can I say this? He's a master connector. And there's an art form to it, and he has written a couple of books, and he's part of that art form that you have created. And tell us about your network. Your network is really substantial these days, isn't it?
I mean, substantial and overwhelming are sort of like the two feelings that happen at once. Because when you have friendships and build bonds with thousands of people and run events at a global scale, no one understands how tiring it is. And I was thinking now, like, oh, right, I have to pack. I leave for Chicago tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And so all these worlds are, I mentioned this because what seems like if it's great actually is also always a burden. And we never actually understand what somebody's going through unless they open up and they share. So I've been fortunate to find for the last 10 years a specific type of person. And this is every one of the 2,300 people currently in my network. They're an action oriented natural giver that I would leave my children with. So you have to interpret that, right? Action oriented means they're really busy. If I said, Kevin, I'd love to connect, and you're like, I'm free all next week, I'm immediately going to judge you because if you're free all next week, you're not doing anything.
Right.
Right? If you're a natural giver, then your first instinct when you meet somebody to ask how you can help, not how great an opportunity is for you to ask for something. And then that integrity bar, this is what made my network different when I started this years ago. Who would I leave my children with? It started with child. Now I have two who are 11 and 8. And that's the bar. So anyone who refers somebody into my network, anyone who is that knows that's the bar they start with. So it elevates who they are to each other. And the selling point of this is every one of those people, introvert or extrovert, is almost invariably the most connected person they've ever met. All I did was build trust with them, help them when they couldn't help themselves. And then it opens up this ripple effect of multiple circles, ecosystems together. So the community I run is this network of networks. I chose not to take on the term meta connector because that's pretentious. Even master connector, I decided I'd take something into the reason that I come from this world with music, and I call it orchestrating connections. Because everyone is their own melody, the same way they're the lead character in their own movie, and everyone around them are the side characters or the harmony. And so if I can help you find your resonance through mine, then at some point we align together and the world can become much more beautiful, much more of a symphony when you connect those connectors to each other. So that's the impetus of what my book was about. The technology I'm building, everything that I do. It's a sophisticated way of saying I've tried to figure out a way to get out of the way as much as possible and help the right people meet each other. Because the problem we have in networking and connection is just a bandwidth problem. Technology puts everyone accessible, but so much out there, and we have no way to filter it. And so I wanted to build and write a playbook of how to hack that, how to do the work ready for people to be ready to say, here's my purpose. This is what I'm after. I, Kevin McDonald, believe and have for several decades now, that when we can adopt a positive mindset, when we can take a much more proactive stance on what we want out of our life to help those around us, that will create ripple effects into this world. And when people get that and they can share that, as you've done so eloquently for years now, as a forerunner and really one of the grandfathers of this idea that the way you talk, the way you act actually creates positive impact, I realized I had one skill set, which was getting a room together, standing in the corner after I made everyone feel good, and watching the magic happen as if I made it all happen, when all I did was create a sense that being curious and vulnerable in a very diverse room was okay, and that it was okay to ask for what you needed, and that you could trust the vetting because I put the time in to have you convene there and have you there. So everything about this is just this one goal that I believe the world can continue to be better when we're intentional and purposeful with who's around us. And that when our reputations are on the line, we will mostly, except for psychopaths and the rest, we will mostly act as greater versions of ourselves.
Which is what we're all here. We're all here to do what you just said. And that's to become greater versions of ourselves, to help each other, to be kind to each other, to understand our differences as being a advantage, not a disadvantage, or not something that is disqualifying, because you miss out. Don't you miss out on so many great people if you dismiss people based upon your preconceived perceptions and notions, rather than getting to know them and finding out in depth who they really are?
You not only miss out, but I'll say something that honestly, it scares a lot of people when I say it this way, but I say it on purpose. I've studied this now for 10 years. I've run networks and made a global presence with what I do from humble beginnings where I had very few advantages, except for being a white man growing up in a middle class family. I've mastered a network in New York, into Hollywood, in the world of family office, into CEOs, and all these different worlds. Because the one thing I believed was that I was put on this earth to help other people meet the right people. And when I look back at what happened to get me there, there have been 3 introductions so far in my life that got me there. I probably missed the other 2. And talking with the most successful people on the planet about what got them to where they are, there are, I believe, 4 to 5 introductions in anyone's life that, if you are in the right place at the right time and ready for it, will dramatically improve and change your life. And most people miss all of them and sit there either with a life of regret or what could have been. Because every case about how an actor was discovered, how somebody met their business partner, how they met their husband, whatever it might be, it's a series of events that make 0 sense until the end result happens. And then it makes total sense when you look back at how it happened. So you can't visualize that. You can't hack it. You have to be ready for it. And most people don't spend the time to be ready.
I believe that everything happens for a reason, and that the people who come into your life, if you're paying attention, and they are somebody that can have value to you and you to them, it's an equal exchange, that amazing things can happen within the confines of that relationship going forward. But you're right, absolutely right. You don't know that at the time. All you're doing is being open and honest and caring about other people, and then let the chips fall where they may, and some of them turn out to be unbelievable connections, I think. Which is that's how I met the incredible staff that I have, as an example.
Mhm.
I didn't know they were going to be incredible until we got down the road a piece. But they were phenomenal, and it's it was just it was just serendipity, if you will, that I ran into them at that exact time, and they were ready, and I was ready, and then we were able to take it to the next level. It's amazing how that works in the connections that you have with people that you meet all the time.
So let me give you an example from my life of one of those catalysts for people to understand what can happen once you understand why you needed to be ready. So my brother's high school friend, I was a senior when he and my brother were freshmen, incredible visionary pioneer in education and now workforce development, named Bronny Rajakumar. And Bronny is second generation American Indian family. Everything he's done has been to create opportunity for people to have opportunity, first in tutoring and now in virtual training with this company called Transfer. And years before that, Bronny says to me, I'd love you to meet a nonprofit I started. It was called NYC Ties. I met a lot of people in it. I offered to do a charity event related to what they were doing. We raised some money together. And I met this woman named Jamie. Jamie and I hit it off. We were both from, theater world. She was a musical theater star and actress at the time. And we stayed friends. And years later, Jamie says, I've been working with somebody. I'd like you to come meet her and just, see if you might be willing to give her some advice. And I went into this office and I sat down with this woman that she worked for, whose name is Rebecca Miller. Rebecca's father is the famous playwright Arthur Miller. Death of a Salesman.
Yes.
The Crucible, right? Somebody my father had taught for years as a modern drama professor, along with being a Shakespearean. So I knew the legacy, but Rebecca she's this wonderful, eccentric, mission-driven human who's an incredible filmmaker, but she also recognized her dad was a New York City public high school graduate. And by the time he passed, New York City high schools, middle schools had less than 10% had a dedicated theater teacher. So the theater capital of the world does not have a majority of schools that teach theater. Yet if you go to New York, Kevin, aren't you thinking about what you're going to see on Broadway?
Yeah, of course.
And New York is the capital of this, one of them. And yet, disconnect from all of these incredible youth growing up in the shadow of Broadway without even knowing theater can be powerful in their lives. So I meet Rebecca. I give her some advice because I come from nonprofits. Eventually, she comes back to me and she says, I'm thinking of forming a board for the Arthur Miller Foundation. Would you be a founding board member? I said yes. I became the founding secretary. I am now the board chair. And a call I have 2 hours later today. Right now, I know this isn't airing today, but it's early October. A call I have today is with a woman who built a network of hundreds of the most powerful Hollywood executives fighting hate speech, especially anti-Semitism in particular. And the only reason that I have the street cred to have that type of conversation, one of the primary reasons, is because the Artistic Advisory Board, who are all Rebecca's friends, are the type of celebrities that everyone else would salivate over thinking they could be in the same room with. And they all know that they're grateful for me for helping guide Jamie, who's an incredible executive director, steer this foundation to continued greater heights of raising funds and getting now up to 23% of New York City public schools having a theater teacher. So for one introduction, I built so much that led to other introductions, but I would not have been ready for this big one for the call I have later unless I had demonstrated value, been open, been generous, and not asked in return. And the thing you have to understand is this sounds like it could happen pretty easily. The introduction from Bronny to Jamie was in 2003. The opportunity in front of me is 22 years later. No one can predict it, but you have to be ready for it by the way you act and the way you insist that things be more than serendipitous and that they be intentional for what you're after.
When we come back from this break, I'd love for you to name drop a few of those folks. No, I don't want you to do that. They have a right to their anonymity. But we're talking with David Homan, and he is the Orchestrated the orchestrated connecting. Would you call yourself a guru, or would you
I
just?
mean, I came out with a book, so if anyone read it, they might think I'm a guru. I'm just somebody trying to do the best I can to get the right information out there so we're less lonely and the world becomes a better place.
And that is a fine goal, and that's the best goal for anybody to have, is to make the world a better place where we can all get along and take care of each other, and to care and be kind to one another. Again, we're talking with David Homan. We will be right back after our station break, and so don't go anywhere, anybody.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
Are you looking for your daily dose of inspiration? Stay connected to all your favorite shows, music, and news with the Brushwood Media Network app. From Positive Talk Radio to Greatest Vibes Unplugged and so many more uplifting voices around the world, everything you need is right in one place. It's easy to use, too. Always available and designed to keep you inspired 24 hours a day. Go to brushwoodmedianetwork.com and download the app, and you will always have Brushwood Media available on your smartphone. Download it now and make inspiration and music and conversation part of your everyday. And welcome back to Positive Talk. My name is Kevin McDonald, and I think you knew that. But David Homan is here, and I got to tell you, David, you are, without intentionally being so, you are an inspiring man. Do you know that?
You know, I appreciate that. The thing that makes me the proudest is not the accolades from you, but the fact that both my children think being a connector is a job. And that for me, when they made me realize they actually think what I do is possible, like I broke down in tears because I spent so much of my career not being valued for being an incredibly connected person that everyone wants to take advantage of, and everyone wants my network, but not everyone wants to represent the value of that. But I've tried to build something to change this paradigm. That's why my mission for my community is to make relationship value valued.
And there is not, in our world, in any time, but especially our time right now, there's nothing that is more valuable than relationships and working together for the betterment of everyone. Sadly, there are just people that don't believe that. But I'm hoping that through programs like this and what you're doing with your work, that we can change some minds in that regard, because this is what you are doing is the way to connect people to each other in a long-lasting, real, fundamental way where people will take your call. I'm willing to bet that even though you may not be selling anything today, but David, if you called somebody and they had a busy schedule, they'd pick up or they'd call you back because they value the human that you are. Is that a fair statement to make?
It's completely, but I would never just pick up the phone. I would ask for a warm introduction. And the thing I've learned that you can control is you can control, not fully control, but you can help guide how people would describe you when you're not there. And when you can do that right, then you create a whole army of people who champion you, because the most important intro comes when you're not in the room. Therefore, you have to imprint on people your value. But the only true way to do that is to have taken an action on their behalf, because words matter nothing in comparison to an action taken.
There's a bumper sticker right there, by the way. You could probably make some money on a bumper sticker doing that.
I could.
And by the way, David, I want to introduce you to somebody. He is running a camp in Kenya, and he is a regular listener of ours. And he says, greetings, brother Kevin. Hope you're doing fine. Rochelle's sick today. She'll be back tomorrow, Samuel. or watching and listening to you live from Kiberia slums in Nairobi, Kenya. Say hey to the guest, David Homan. This is our favorite program, Positive Talk Radio. God bless you, listening keenly with my team of 20. I want a picture for you, David, that there is a big screen TV because we are live on YouTube. There's a big screen TV that is in their office, and there are seats for 20 or 30, and they teach from there. They're working to develop a school in Kenya. They feed 350 kids every Saturday, and they have become a member, a Positive Talk member of our team. And we are just so pleased that he is doing what he's doing for humanity. And I'm telling you, we can do nice things here in the United States. If you're doing what he's doing in Kenya, that's a whole different level of being committed to a project, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I have so much respect, especially for that type of work, changing lives, giving people a future, moving them from just needing basics to being able to amplify their lives. Like, this is what real impact is. We don't seem to understand how little it takes to help other humans and how rewarding it is to do so. And it's not about writing a check, it's about showing up and giving consistency to people who need it.
And I tell you, every time that we look at he sent us a couple of videos, and in the videos there are kids, dozens of them, and they got a bowl in their hand, and they're getting ready to have some lunch on a Saturday, and it may be, and Kenya's a third world country, and that may be the only meal that they're going to get that day.
Yeah.
And he's providing it, and they are excited and happy to have it. So somebody like that and somebody like you're willing and you're interested in taking care and to putting out good things into the world, because you know what happens when you put something good out into the world? You get it back. I know that for a fact. So good things, because of the way that you are and the things that you've done, good things come back to you, not because you got lucky. It's because you've earned them by the way that you treat other people. Would you call that fair?
I wouldn't just call it fair. I would call it, my reputational value. Yours, Kevin. Your colleagues in Kenya's reputational value. It is the one thing on this planet you cannot buy. You
Yes.
can only earn it. And your reputation is something you can control. It is only something you can add to or take away to and take away from. But we live in a world where that is we don't have the same accountability as we need to for it. So everything that I work to change, is to make people understand that you have a choice of who's around you. You have a choice of how your reputation grows or diminishes. But when you need something on this planet, you cannot give it neutrality. You cannot give it apathy and expect results. So people who complain about things that aren't the way they want it to be and don't do it, I don't want those people in my life. People who take advantage of other people because they think they are better than other people, I don't want those people in my life. What I want are people who are willing to take a stand, willing to do something greater than themselves and bring everyone along with them. The world doesn't need 1,000 times 1,000 leaders. What they need is tens of thousands of communities where that collective action is always greater than the one who currently does it. And when we do that right, our society actually shifts. Everything in history shows us that movements are born from leaders who bring communities and movements with them. It's what makes the world a better place, because the people who are forced to change, suddenly they know their reputation will be diminished, will be eradicated, unless they shift something that they, in a position of power, were currently holding on to. It's how people have been freed. It's how nations have been reformed. It's why civil rights and all of these important initiatives finally happened. You don't think it's an accident that men finally decided to give women a right to vote, which they should have had from the dawn of time? It happened because of communities and movements putting people in enough a position where either they rise above their current prejudices to make something happen, or they don't. And when that becomes a consequence, look what changes. That's why I argue for the element of risk, for making things much more transparent and clear, and not just saying, here's how we all come together, kumbaya, but here's how you're out if you don't follow these codes and take these right type of actions.
I'm willing to bet that if you and I were to go have lunch at a nice restaurant, that you would say thank you, you'd say please, you'd be kind to the wait staff. That is, because I grew up in the restaurant business, that is one of my fundamental rules. If you are not nice to the people that are serving you and say thank you and please and may I and smile at them, you're not worth my time, because I'm on their side rather than being on the side of someone who doesn't care about people that he views as less than him or her. And so to me, that's a fundamental thing of whether or not you're going to ever work with me. If you can't if you can't be nice in a restaurant, then I want nothing to do with you. And but that, and it goes into so much more than that. But I get your point. So I'm willing to say that, David, I'll bet you are. I bet you tip well. I bet you say thank you and please and are really nice to the wait staff, and they're happy that when you come into the restaurant, they're saying, "Oh, David's here."
I don't know how else to do it. And I'll say, right, because I live in New York where it's a service-based industry, when service is exceptional, I tip well. When service is not, and I've had to take into my own hands, I don't. Because it can't just be an assumption that you're going to do your job well and make 25-30%, which is what it is now post-COVID. It's something where you actually have to do your job right. And so when I go to any restaurant, I greet the people as any human would to another. I talk with them. I'm trying to be respectful of how busy they are. But in most cases, I have an expectation of what's met. And if that need's not met, I will actually address it. I was at a restaurant the other day and my water didn't get refilled. And I said, listen, I've been getting over this cold. Like, I would really love either to have a pitcher of water or to make sure somebody comes back. And the waitress was so apologetic. She's like, the other person didn't take their shift today. I'm managing 20 tables. I'll do my best. And sure enough, my water ran dry. But because I learned why, it was all fine. It wasn't about me. It was about understanding the situation. And every situation where you have an opportunity to be kinder to somebody actually enriches you. I fly all the time. I have this fun thing where I go up and I'm going through Clear and TSA, and I ask the person checking my ID how they are, and they look at me with shock, as if I'm the first person you asked them for the entire day.
Yep.
How they are. What? It took 4 seconds, and their day is brighter. It's like, why are we not in a headspace where we can do that? Why we're not in a headspace where we can say thank you to somebody? Or my favorite thing to do is to call somebody up and explain why I'm grateful for them that they're not expecting. It makes their day, it makes their week. Because I always want to get this human behavior right, Kevin, I do it knowing one thing, which is as I fly, and I fly frequently, I have over 100 snow globes from everywhere I travel with my kids so they can see it. I keep seeing the same agents over and over again. So guess who gets treated better?
You.
Right? In the world of going to the same restaurants, I never have to worry about certain things. Or there's always an accident from the kitchen. Something got burned, and here's this meal that they made for me because I'm gracious. And I treated them as human beings in case I become friends with chefs from this. Then the chef comes over to my table, and other people go, how'd you meet the chef? I told them their food was great and I really liked this. Like, It didn't take that much to do, and yet we don't do it, and we don't understand the strategy. So the gratitude one, because I always like to leave people with something that seemingly is just nice, but also can be selfish in return. Want to know how people stay top of mind with people that they need something from? Thank them without an ask.
Yeah.
As I was raising for the next round of my startup, I went to a lot of people who were really gracious with me, not investing the first time, but making introductions for me. And I was like, listen, I know these two interests didn't pan out, but I just wanted to thank you so much for trying to help me. I'm going to be coming into my next round soon for my startup, SOAR Connect. I don't know if these people, would be interested or not. I don't want to put that pressure on you, but just when I was thinking about which people stepped up from when I needed it, you were one of them. So thank you, Steve. That's it. 5 weeks later, hey, I was just thinking of you. It's Steve. What about these three people? They might be good for your startup. A humane gesture of gratitude became completely strategic value I didn't have to ask for by just simply constantly being a gracious person to people. That's why I want to explain this stuff this way. It's not just a mindset. It's not that you have to be altruistic and giving and giving and giving. You have to exist in a world where everything around you feels more at harmony. And the more it's at harmony, the more resonance, so to speak, you have with people, the more you are feeding a positive cycle to each other, as opposed to propagating not a negative one, but a one that is neutral, that is flatlined, that is just full of people doing what they need with apathy in the middle, that can turn on a dime when I say to you, Kevin, I really love your show and I'm so grateful to be on it.
Well, I'm grateful to have you here because and by the way, it ain't just me. Samuel says, "Whoa, David, your inspiration point makes us cry," and that is a wonderful way for him to acknowledge who you are as a human being and also a strategic thinker too.
The fact, Kevin, and I appreciate you sharing that quote, and it makes me sad that people cry at something that should be the truth people live by. The tears are for the world not being the way that it should be. I wish it was. But the fact that I also thanked you and your instant thought was to thank the other people means that everyone listening, if they appreciate that, should take the step of saying, you know what? I'm not just going to send this episode to 10 friends. I'm going to share this with the top 50 people I love and respect because I found something valuable in this. Because the minute somebody was told they were great, their response was, thank you for everyone who makes this all possible. Somebody else would go, I know, I'm a great host. It's really great to have you. Right? That's what makes people famous. That's what makes people big. Is this idea that the arrogance and the bravado and the ego are what we strive for. And all those people, they might be powerful and they might be sought after, but they are lonely because people are only there for their power.
That's it.
And the people who are purposeful and intentional, and I'm talking from like Steven Spielberg to Malala to Prince William to some of the most incredibly generous humans, they are not lonely because what they do with their actions and their creations inspire people to keep supporting their visions through gratitude. None of them have an ego. They might know their value, but they don't have to lead with constantly justifying it. Everyone else is trying to justify something much different because they're constantly finding something inside of them that proves they're still not good enough. Therefore, they're going to treat you as less. So, the most powerful people, the most important people on this planet are the people who have the trust of people who will rise with them. Not everyone needs to be a leader. Not everyone needs to be a connector. Not everyone needs to run a community, but everyone can be accountable for who the top people around them are. And if they hold themselves accountable and the people around them, and those people do the same, what you get exponentially at some point is all these incredible gears turning towards something greater. And all it takes is Insist on it for the top 5 people around you. See what happens if they do the same. And what happens in a purposeful community is then we actually change the world, as opposed to create vacuums where those non-humble people can continue to take advantage.
And you are so right. You are so right. And I want to shout out to, because I am so blessed. I started this 20 years ago and it was just little old me. But the team that I have now is dedicated. They believe in the work that we are doing, and they're doing their they won't even tell me how often, how many hours they're working, because they refuse to tell me. But that's the goal of what we are doing. And that's, David, why I wanted to have you on the show, because you are someone who genuinely is interested in bettering humanity. Now, yes, we interview a lot of people who can say that, and some actually mean it. You prove it. And I want to give you a couple of moments to tell everybody how they can get involved with your work, the book that you have, and how working with you and the connections that you make and the connections that you have. And then I want to ask you for a personal favor from me at the end. So go ahead and tell everybody how to reach David and what to do.
So my world exists within one type of Google search. If you take any variation of orchestrated connecting, which is my community, orchestrating connection, which is my book, orchestrated opportunities, which is my advisory firm, and then my startup, which is called SOAR Connect, SOAR, Strength of Authentic Relationships. I put this all out there. The book became a USA Today bestseller when it came out in August. So I've already gotten that. What I wrote was a playbook with my co-author Noah Askin, meant to change the way people see this. Everything I'm talking about here, it's in the book. It's codified there. There are examples. There are incredible stories. And so, the best way to support is not just to read the book, but to share it. I cannot make this bigger unless other people believe the same things I do, by putting it into action and saying, you know what? It actually worked for me. And so that's always my ask, because this is not just something I want to do for myself, Kevin, to make my world richer. I literally believe the system can change if we simply adopt a different way to make the system work for us.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And that's what I'm working to do. And you can tell all of your connections that you have. What I'm working to do is to make Positive Talk have a big enough platform where we can make a difference on a global basis. We've got people in Kenya. We've got other people who believe in the work, and it's just being kind. It's taking care of each other. And I also, before we go, and we're running out of time, I want to make sure that when you get a chance on Friday to go down and see your dad, that you tell him hi from me, and that he should be very proud of the son that he has sitting in front of me here.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Because he's built a man who has legs and can make it work, and is there for the betterment of humanity, which we all should be, but there are some that are interested in, have a different agenda. And that's too bad. But I'm glad you are who you are, and you're building a community of like-minded people, which is in the thousands now.
I grew up with a dad, Kevin, who always showed up. I didn't realize how lucky I was till I met many of my other friends whose dads could or shouldn't. I'm that type of dad. It's why I lead with running a community and only wanting to connect with people that have that same drive. And that's why I say I only want to connect with people I'd leave my children with.
That is a great standard to adhere to, because anything less than that, there are other circumstances that may be involved. He's got a lot of money, has a lot of connections, rather than the purity of the message. If you can't leave him with your kids, then you don't want him in your network or in your world, and that only makes sense. I want to give you the floor to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know.
So I've already challenged everyone listening to take a stance of expressing gratitude to one person who's helped you. That's how I always love to leave these, because it's a great positive action, right? It'd be great if everyone listening could buy my book. It'd be even greater if more than that, if somebody you knew was a connector, to send them my way. But that's not why I do this. The reason I do this, and this is my ask, is if you were to think about anyone listening, somebody who's asked you for help, you could take 10 minutes, not just to help them, but to share with discretion with the closest people you know if they could help. If our inboxes, if our phones were flooded with offers of generosity, we would all start our day understanding we're not alone in feeling and needing so much more than we have. And the minute we feel we're not alone, we feel what's possible for what happens when we come together. Everyone sits in a world figuring out how to get the most from it. But if we sat in a world where we get the opportunity to help other people, it becomes a whole different way to look at humility into action. And this is why I do the work that I do. I'm now having to go out and shout it out to the rooftops and talk about it all at a greater scale. But it's because I am sick and tired of people sitting by while other people take advantage of other people. Where people pretend it's okay to dislike people for the color of their skin, for their gender, for their race, for their religion, when every poll everywhere shows the majority of people agree with each other on almost all issues. And yet divisiveness happens for one reason in my world, and that's apathy. So if anyone were to listen and care, I think probably you have an audience skewed towards this already. Saying you care, I don't care about. Saying you took an action because of the work that Positive Talk Radio gives you and promote Positive Talk Radio by doing so, that's worthy of doing.
David Homan, thank you so much for being here. We've gone over time now, so I get to get yelled at, but that's okay because this was a really fun episode, and I want to thank you so much for being here.
I appreciate it so much. I thank you for having me, Kevin, for your entire team, for the countless hours they won't count for you of making all this possible, and for everyone listening.
And thanks again. And hold on, kindly, we request David's social media platforms. Are you on social media as well?
I am the Connection Orchestrator on Instagram. I have my own name, David R. Homan, on LinkedIn. I don't touch TikTok, Facebook, and my own personal music site, which if you take my last name, Homan, and you put the word music next to it, you can hear several hundred of my works.
Oh, crap. You're going to have to come back. We didn't even get a chance to talk about that. I'm really interested in talking about that as well. So
that's all right. Everyone thinks of my music as very private music. My older sister calls it bathroom music, meaning things you listen to alone. So we could talk about it, but everyone should just go into their own rooms, into their own bathrooms, listen to my string quartets, my solo piano music, and hopefully find some sense of purpose and solace from it.
David Homan, thank you so much. Go online, search him, and you'll find him everywhere. And I hope everybody has a great day. And David, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.